On today's episode of Save the Rail, we have got Michael Frampton. Michael has had over 80 podcasts and he's interviewed some amazing people like Barton Lynch, Brad Gerlach, and his insights are really held in high regard. So without further ado, let's jump in and listen to Michael Frampton. To all the viewers, this is my podcast. I've only done about 4 of them, and I pick people that I really like talking to. And you're one of my favorites. We've had a lot of conversations behind the scenes that I wish I had have recorded because there's been so much gold. And I'd love just to kind of open up this as like a open conversation, anything that you want to discuss. And I've got stuff that I definitely want to discuss with you because I just feel that you are a wealth of knowledge. You've interviewed people from Barton Lynch to Tom Carroll to people that worked at the High Performance Center in Australia to different coaches around the world. I really value your opinion on these conversations that we have and also your input. The reason being is I may look at something with a bias because of where I'm at in my stage of development, where you'll come out of it from a different point of view. And it often shows me that I'm just scratching the tip of the iceberg, where actually there's a hell of a lot more to be learned and discovered. So, do you want me to just jump in and start throwing some stuff at you and just see what sticks and what you want to talk about?
Please, I'm ready.
Okay. You're sleeping a third of our lives. What the hell are you going to do with the other 2/3? Because it's such a short period of time. It's like, make the most of it. How did you figure out that you want to be a psychologist? It's like, what led you there? Like, talk to me, Michael.
Well, first of all, a quote comes to mind from Dr. John Demartini, who's one of my favorite psychologists, and that's your voids drive your values. So, whatever you perceive is missing in your life is often what you pursue.
Yeah.
Right. So, you don't, to put it in the context of surfing, you don't seek out a surf coach or seek to educate yourself around how to become a better surfer if you think you're a great surfer or if you're happy with the way that you're surfing. So your voids, what you perceive as missing, drives your values, which is your education, your what you want to spend your time doing and learning and teaching, etc., etc. But yeah, we spend a third of our lives sleeping. Then another third of our lives is usually working. And there's only a small percentage of people who get to make their work their passion. And then the other third is usually, spent doing what we pursue, whether that's our craft, and of course that's our relationships, our family, etc.
You don't think that, like, as humans, we're not focused enough? Like, if you think, okay, sleep, work, here's that little bit left, that 1/3 to focus on what you want to do. And then some people are like, oh, I don't know. They're very indecisive. I want to kind of shake some people and go, you got so much talent. Just pursue that passion. Just give it a full go.
Yeah, it's tricky with young people. But a big part of what you're speaking to is, first of all, what you're already doing, like where you're spending your time, your money, and your energy. The way that you're spending those things is already telling you what you like. So sometimes we just need to sit back and literally write down, okay, what are the top 3 things I spend my money on? What are the top 3 things I spend my time doing? And once you write those things down, you realize, oh, that is so what you're doing, what you're already doing is demonstrating what's highest in your values. And sometimes we get embarrassed by that and we overthink it.
So you're saying that subconsciously we've already got those things kind of figured out between sleep, work, and passion, but we just haven't defined them as clear goals. And if we could define it as more of a clear goal, would be able to maybe pursue it more clearly. Whereas right now, we're a little bit, let's call it unfocused.
Yeah, I mean, take surfing for example. I know when I was younger, I overthought surfing, and I got to the point where I thinking, God, surfing is just this selfish addiction, and it's just a waste of my time. I know I'm not good enough to make money out of it, and I almost shunned away from it. But I kept thinking about it and wanting to go surfing. So I wasn't spending my physical time surfing, but because it was actually so high in my values, it still occupied my mind and my thoughts, and there was this disconnect. And it wasn't until I discovered that disconnect about myself, and I thought, you know what, just own it, just go surfing, spend your money on surf trips, buy surfboards, get surf coaches. Don't be embarrassed about the fact that you love surfing. Dive into it, and and it's just that was the to me that was part of the answer. It was not being in. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm trying to like steer you towards. So something about me, I've got all these ideas in my head. I feel like this crazy professor, but I'm really struggle with my words and trying to get it out. But I think we're heading the right direction of this. Is that a lot of people are nervously afraid to pursue that passion, even if they're not a good surfer. That they're maybe scared to spend the money on it. That they can't validate spending money on something that they love because they're not good at it. But what I've come to realize is that through the coaching that I've been doing over the last, I'd say more the last 5 years, is the benefits of surfing, physically, mentally, socially, emotionally. There's so many benefits. I've been figuring all this out by working with kids and then working with ladies on so many different levels. Surfing is good for you. One of the things that I've just recently figured out is by helping us to get into a flow state. Now, for me, flow state's more about kind of being in the moment. And if you're in the moment, you're not worried about what's happening in the future or the past. And then being able to not have to think about stuff in the moment and just being present to the moment and reacting to it is probably one of the I think all the Zen masters in yoga are trying to do that. Everyone's trying to do that, but we can quite often have those moments inside of surfing where it gives you elation, it's fun, and it's such a healthy outlook for the rest of your life. I know that you've been talking to a lot of people about flow. Is there any light that you could shed on this topic of flow?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you're right in saying, that's one of the coolest things about surfing is it encompasses all of those things that are necessary for a healthy life: exercise, getting in amongst nature, having a passion, doing something that's difficult to get better at, and it elicits a flow state. And gosh, it's even used as a therapeutic modality. Surfing is all of those things. And I think for the first, depending on your capabilities and how old I think you come to surfing, I think for the first sort of maybe 3 to 5 years, surfing is that really difficult pursuit that puts you into flow each and every time you go. But I think after about, for me, it was sort of about that 4 year mark. I got to that point where I could comfortably paddle out in anything from sort of waist to double overhead and be reasonably comfortable with the board I'm riding. And then I started to realize that was a plateau for me because I didn't automatically go into a flow state because there wasn't that difficulty level or novelty that had sort of gone away. And so then I had to start thinking into, oh, what about sports psychology? How do I? Because then you start finding that whereas surfing used to get you out of your head and into surfing and out of the rest of your life and into the moment, But then when when surfing gets to that point where, well, it's not really doing that for me, then you have to start thinking, oh, and sometimes it almost takes the enjoyment out of surfing. And then you start buying different boards to make surfing harder with a weird surfboard, or you might start getting into bigger waves or more difficult waves, and that works for a while. But ultimately, you end up wanting to go surfing on those on your favorite surfboard on those normal days without any sort of novelty, and then you're like, then you're stuck. You can't get into the moment. You can't improve because, yeah, it's not
So
forcing you into flow anymore. So you got to
yeah,
look at other strategies.
so there were two things I got from what you just said over there. The one being when you're inside of your comfort zone, it's almost difficult to find that flow state. You almost got to be outside of your comfort zone. That's going to require a bit more attention to detail inside of that moment. And when you pay more attention, you can then find that flow state, or you can start looking for it. So it's kind of got to do with focus. If it's too easy to do something, your focus is going to wane. But as soon as, like, if it's a tricky wave and it's barreling, like you're all in. You're totally focused on that moment. Um, so how important is it for us to, in life, to push our comfort zones? Um,
Well,
and
yeah, it's so important because those flow states are what we all want. That's why we got into surfing, whether we realize it or not. That's what's so addictive about and enjoyable about surfing is those flow states.
can I ask you a question on top of the flow state? So I feel like I'm jumping in and I'm blocking you, but I have so
No,
many
no, go.
questions I want to go for. Okay. Do you remember your first wave?
I do actually.
Okay, so do I. So if you're in an accident, you have recall of the accident where you could almost slow things down and remember it. But I remember my first wave really, really clearly. And was I in flow state? Were you in flow state? So even as a beginner, you weren't doing much, but you just felt this thing, and you're so entrenched in the moment of like, shit, I'm actually surfing. Like, this feels amazing. And maybe that's the first hook in surfing, when someone has their first taste of flow state, and then they want to find it again. And then what happens? You get comfortable on foamies, and then you want to go up and up and up. But my question to you is, can a beginner be in flow state?
Yeah, definitely. I think that first wave flow state is almost forced because whether you realize it or not, your brain does subconsciously realizes this, that if I mess this up, I could drown.
Yeah.
Right. So your brain subconsciously realizes that that knows the sharks, it knows all of the risks, and it almost forces flow state. So yeah, I think the beginner, but if the beginner feels like that things are starting to speed up and they're losing that flow state, then that's when they need to progress. That's when they need to step outside of their comfort zone.
So that would be potentially riding maybe a green face wave, a bigger wave, changing your equipment, maybe trying a new maneuver, or any one of those things. Any change um, makes it more difficult, and then it's going to require more attention.
Yep. Yeah, changing equipment, changing location, changing size of waves. Also, just
So
the, maybe more so for the intermediate, but focusing in on some of the details
we
that
had
can
a
help.
chat last week where you said introduce something novel, like something new creates more attention. Could you jump into that again?
Yeah. So I think for example, I think I use the example that, let's say you're training someone on the beach and say intermediate to advanced surfer, and you realize that they're stuck in their head and they're just not they're not getting into the zone, they're not surfing, like, and you talk to them and they're like, turns out their girlfriend broke up with them. Well, it's not your job, and you're not likely to change their state of mind in that present moment about that relationship issue that's going on. But what you can do is say, hey, look, you know what, why don't you take your fins out and go and catch 3 waves for me? What? Oh, no, keep going. And then they're going to get all of a sudden they've never ridden that surfboard without fins, and there's a new novel challenge for them. So they're going to get out of their head and into their body and hopefully break that cycle, and then they can come into the beach, put their fins back in, and go back out. And they're way more likely to, first of all, they have more awareness of their own surfboard,
Yeah.
and they've broken that cycle, and they've got into the body and they've got into a flow state, and then they can go back out with their fins and hopefully change the whole dynamic of the surf just by adding in some novelty.
Yeah. That's gold. I don't think people realize that. Some people go into the water expecting the surf to fix them. They have to go there and kind of like leave all the nonsense behind, go out in the water with little expectations, and just try to be present to have fun. So inside of that, I wrote a question about myself. So with this whole focus thing, I am lazy. I'll tell you outright. Like I've got a sore shoulder. I should be doing all my strengthening exercises and whatnot. The band looks at that. I have a battle of wills. I look at the band looks at me, and we both kind of just stare at each other and do nothing. Then what I will do is I'll look at the band will look at me, I'll get lazy, and I'll pick my phone up and I'll get distracted. Like I will do everything but what I should be doing. So I feel like I'm damn lazy and I'm easily distracted. But what I should be doing, and that's what you just mentioned now, is rather doing the performance battle. So when I'm in the moment and I'm doing something, I'm fine with it. Like if you said, okay, I'm inside of my head, take your fins out and go surf. When I'm in the finless and I'm paying attention to the performance battle, how do I make it work? How do I do that? I'm all in. But like when you made me go ice bath, I was like, I'm going to be uncomfortable, Michael. I don't really want to do this. I'd be happy to sit out. And then after the ice bath, when you had that warm, like little jacuzzi bath, whatever it was, I was like, I'd much rather sit in my comfort zone in here than go outside of that comfort zone. So I just think that in the world that we're in, there are grit battles where we're fighting ourselves to motivate ourselves to actually do it. But when we're there, we enjoy it. It's the same as going to gym. I hate gym, but when I'm there, I'm okay with it. The hardest thing is motivating myself to freaking go to gym. Any light that you can shed on there with
Well,
motivational, what's going on in my head? Why am I like that?
first of all, there's lots there. There's
Okay.
lots there. The individual who's purely intrinsically motivated, right? Someone who's really self-motivated, that's very rare,
Yeah.
right? So let's take, I mean, first of all, let's take the ice bath, for example. You wouldn't have gone and done that by yourself.
No, I needed a lot of motivation to
Well,
do
there was
that.
a group. It was within the space of a group,
Yeah.
right? So you see other people doing it. There was also, I don't know if you remember, there was also an element of education that went around that and saying, hey, look, here, the ice bath is a stressor. Okay.
Yep.
If you just jump in the ice bath and say, stay in there, you're like, what? But if we were to say, no, hey, look, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You can jump into the hot water afterwards. But when you jump in, your body is going to automatically think hypothermia is coming. But if you tell yourself, no, I'm going into the hot bath after this and I'm going to control my breathing, then you're taking control of the stressful situation and it's bringing ownership back to you, right? So it's teaching you to control yourself under a stressful situation. Okay, so there's a bit of education that goes around it. You're in a group, other people are about to do it. You've just seen someone else do it. You want to be part of the group. And then everyone sees the benefits together as a group and you can talk about it afterwards. So that's part of it. It's like, and then when it comes to the example of rehab, like, yeah, just book in with a physical therapist. You just have to, like, if getting your shoulder better is important to you, then spend money on it. Don't just think, oh yeah, I'm going to buy a $2 rubber band and do it at home. No, you're not. Like you just pay the $80 or whatever it is and book and go and stand there and get someone to make you laugh and make you do the exercises because that's their job. So sometimes we need to seek out, and when it comes to surfing, and I want to be a better surfer. I'm self-motivated. I'm going to watch a YouTube video. No, you're not. No, you need to sign up to an online course with your buddy or book a lesson with a surf coach in person, whatever. You can't do it alone. So I think a lot of it to do is with we can't do it alone. There's very few people that are solely intrinsically motivated. Most people aren't those people. So don't do it alone and seek the experts. Pay
Some,
them. That's what they're there for.
something that came to mind when you said with the ice bath, there was one guy that jumped in for like 10 minutes and it was freezing. I could barely do a minute. Like it
Yeah, but
felt like I was on fire.
but
But
he's a pro at it. He's been doing it a long time.
yeah, but when you see what's possible, you're like,
Mm.
oh, okay. I had another 9 minutes to go and he didn't die. He was okay. He looked calm. I looked freaked out. And then I think what you said is inside of that group, there are elders that make things seem possible. It was like when Tony Hawk tried to do, I think it was the 900 or whatever it was. It took him like months to figure that out, or even years. But now there's like 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds doing it because suddenly it becomes the new norm. Whereas when you're doing it on your own, it's like to tell someone just go out and surf, spend, I don't know, 5 to 10 years of your life figuring it out on your own. It's kind of, I see that as potentially crazy. Do it with someone who knows or surf with someone better than you. You will then see what the possibilities are, what normal is and what it looks like. And you'll start gleaming information. For me, that's something valuable. So it brings me to the question, have we got surfing wrong? Because all the old information was like, oh, just go surf more. Or is surfing going through this evolution of change? What is your take on that?
Mm. I mean, the simple advice of going to surf more, it's not bad advice
No.
because time in the water, there is no way around that. The ocean is a very dynamic thing that's always changing, and that experience is always going to be needed. Can we make that time in the water more efficient with education and learning from icons and teachers? And hell yeah, we can. Have we got it wrong in so many ways at the moment, right? I mean, where's it going to go? I mean, if it keeps going down this road, it's going to end up being policed like a ski field if we don't get our act together.
Yeah, yeah, it's getting dangerously crowded and a lot of aggression in the water.
Yeah, and education is a huge part of it. Um,
It's because having been an ex-pro surfer, expecting to get the best waves and a lot of them, I go out there with the same expectation. Um, Now that I'm getting older, there's the new guard that's come up that are way fitter, more agile. They're on the inside getting the ways that I want. So I'm already seething because I'm maybe a little bit older. Like I want what they got. I feel like I'm losing. So it makes me want to try harder. Then when I finally get a wave, I've got this really high expectation to perform super high and then putting that pressure on myself. And then when there's someone in the way, it's just an added, whoa. And then you said, just go out there and get a barrel, genuine barrel, and the guy drops in on you. And you're like, I waited 3 hours. Why'd you drop in on me? So I'm just like, oh, my head's
but
popping.
then that experience should inform and manage your future expectations.
Yes.
And like, but think of Joel Parkinson goes out to Kura, and
Yeah.
if he expects to get a barrel when no one drops in on him, that's actually pretty damn realistic because it's Joel Parkinson and he's probably out there. He's put the time out there, and
Yeah.
he's out paddled and out snaked everyone in the lineup, and everyone knows who he is. So that is a realistic expectation for Joel Parkinson, right?
Correct. Yes.
So then if you're not willing to put that time in, you don't deserve to have that expectation. I'm sorry, you just don't. The amount of entitlement that has encroached into this surfing culture makes me want to vomit.
I, I think surfing sells that idea.
Oh yeah,
Um,
doesn't
so
deliver though.
so the expectations there, but the delivery is not there. Yeah, it almost oversells and underdelivers.
Totally.
From all the guests that you've done in your podcasts, and from what you've gleaned from them, if you were to create a school of surfing, and what led me to this is when I was a kid growing up, just watching TV, there's this dance school called Fame. Like Fame, I'm gonna live forever, and I don't know if you ever watched that show, but basically it was the dance school performing arts, and they'd all go dancing. I've worked at the HPC Centre. I've coached the South African surfing team. I've coached some pros. I've coached lots of intermediates and beginners. But from your point of view, if you had to create a school of surfing, performing arts, whatever it is, and you were to hire teachers, coaches, who would you have working at your school and why and what are they teaching?
Hmm.
You're the headmaster. You get to hand pick, cherry pick who you want at your performing arts school.
That is an excellent question. Okay, so first of all, we need someone talking about technique. That's fundamental. Everyone knows that. And that would be you, Clayton. I would have you talking about technique. Um, oh man.
And can I ask the why? Because it's easy enough to say, oh, okay, let me
Because you break it down out of all the coaches I've worked with and interviewed, and there's plenty that I've worked with that I haven't interviewed that aren't public known. You break it down the best. You make it digestible in the best way. And that is not only that, but that's just not just my opinion. I mean, you're the most popular guest on the show as well. So the way you talk about technique and wave reading, etc., is highly digestible and understandable. And you also have a lot of patience. And I just know you would work with someone until they did get it, and you would come up with analogies that suited them. So, and then I think that an elder would need to be involved as well. Tom Carroll comes to mind. Just his level of experience in surfing, his knowledge of the culture, and his ability to manage expectations and, you know, increase your enjoyment, that sort of stuff. Just having an icon and an elder involved would be important. Matt Griggs comes to mind in terms of, I think, the meditation factor. I think that's important. Um,
So you probably wouldn't think that meditation and surfing go hand in hand because you think all surfers are the most chilled out dudes.
huh, go to the super bank.
Exactly. So I kind of want to dive into a little bit more of the why would you have something like mindfulness inside of surfing? Why? Like, what's the point of it all?
I'll use a. I'll first of all I'll use a Matt Griggs quote that beautifully illustrates that question, which is, "You don't think balance, you feel balance." And mindfulness is kind of disassociating yourself from the looping thoughts in your head, getting out of your head into your body, into your gut feelings. You notice how great surfers have this intuitiveness, this just a feel for when a set's coming, or a feeling like that they're tapped into that. They're not all up in their heads overthinking decisions. They're right there within the feeling. They feel the wave. Actually, and even neurologically speaking, the your feeling, your sense of touch, and just the way you feel a wave in a surfboard, that's the fastest signal to your brain is your feeling. Vision's actually the slowest.
Really?
Especially, yes. Yeah. We're talking, tenths of a second, but yeah, feel is, even for some reason, it makes me think of it. Joel Parkinson, remember, was it when he won Backdoor? And before he had eye surgery, he said he could barely even see the details on the wave, but he just went by feel. I think he said he was surfing by braille.
Yeah. So that is interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way before, but I always have an analogy. Whereas if you say look at the wave and you can see the bottom of the wave is drawing water up, you can anticipate through looking what's going to happen. But if
Mm-hmm.
then you get a feel for what's happening, normally you're on point with the feeling. Sometimes the looking lies because the wave might go over a hole in the bank or a hole in the reef and it gets fat. But when you feel it, in the moment, feeling won't lie to you. But you could feel if it was fat or you could feel if it's drawing. So yeah, feeling definitely is more accurate. And the looking, sometimes you look at it with a bias and you might read it incorrect because of that bias.
Well, I mean, both are really important in surfing, but the feeling is closer to the now as well.
Yes.
And when do you pop up? When it looks like the right time to pop up, or when it feels like the right time to pop up?
And it feels like the right time.
Exactly. And meditation is something that can help you get in touch, especially those that end up in our heads a lot. And you develop a lot of, you just, yeah, you develop a greater a sense of the presence of the now, and you tap into that intuitiveness, and it also helps you learn to focus on one thing at a time as well, which I think is really important, especially once you start to, if you start realizing you want to get better at surfing, well, you can't just get better at everything. You got to choose one thing and you got to focus on that and get some self-awareness. There might be some coaching or some video coaching around it first. Where are you at? And then decide on a goal. Where do you want to go? And then narrow that focus down in on it. And meditation is so important to help that. So, Matt Greggs is a guest I've had on the show before. He's proven in the surf world. He helped Mick Fanning to his world title and was with the Rip Curl team. So, but then also what else comes to mind would be Michael Gervais, who is a previous guest on the show as well. He's a sports psychologist for the Red Bull team. So I think sports psychology is an important aspect to be part of this hypothetical university.
Can you split that mindfulness and sports psychology and just explain to me and the viewers what's the difference here between mindfulness and sports psychology?
I think they go hand in hand, and I would say even someone like Matt Griggs bridges both those things, and so does Michael Gervais, because Michael Gervais teaches meditation, different style than Matt. But I think it's nice to say, hey, look, get out of your head and into your body, but that never happens 100%, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be some amount of thinking left, no matter how great a meditator you are. When you're surfing, there is going to be some self-talk. There's going to be some self-thinking. It's going to be thinking about what happened. There's going to be thinking about what's coming. There's going to be some of that. So the sports psychology techniques you learn are going to help you to manage the thinking and the goal setting processes around what's going on. As the meditation is going to help you to narrow that focus and to also to get back in touch with the feeling and what's going on in your body. So they do work hand in hand.
Something that I figured out from coaching is what works for me probably won't work for you. So in other words, like if I went, hey, when I surf, I do this particular thing, and you should do it because of your personality and your background, and then also your biology, like what gives you an endorphin release or what makes your adrenaline kick in, all those type of that, all that chemistry is different to mine. So what works for me is probably not going to work for you. So by working closer with someone, he's going to be pushing different buttons to find out what your trigger is. And then if he can find the trigger, he can make you aware of the trigger, in which case you can then start accessing it on a more regular basis. And I think that's the difference between actually getting a coach and maybe just watching everything on YouTube going, oh, okay, that's how you do it and that's how you do it. Because if it works for a Mick Fanning, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great illustration of why a coach is so necessary.
Yeah.
I think if you're serious about it, I mean, of course, educating yourself is important as well. But yeah, you got to take that next step, and that was. And then I think what else would be really important, and which leads me into another the other person I think would be important in the university would be in this hypothetical dream surfing university would be a good top level psychotherapist, because especially not so relevant for the younger surfer, but especially as we get older, I think at least myself and my clients and people I know, what starts to become more important than surfing, dare I say, is one's relationships, one's families. And
I,
sometimes if they aren't going well, if your relationships aren't going well, there's no amount of sports psychology or meditation that can get that out of your head, and then you just can't focus properly when
yeah,
you're surfing.
I was going to say, I could not agree with you more. So we have a program here on the Gold Coast called Kiwi, where we take kids surfing as part of their schooling. It's only year 11 and year 12s, but if the kids had an argument with a parent or broken up with a girlfriend, they are surfing like shit. And the kids that are ripping are basically kind of, their psychology is good and they're in a happy space. So I can almost pinpoint to Matt, the school teacher, when he gets out, okay, I think Johnny or whoever it is has got an issue. Can you go and try to figure out what that is? And generally, if you fix the problem at the beach, by the time they've got to school, they're in a much better mindset to then work on their education. So it's showing proven results that um, we fix the mind at the beach and it helps them to learn better. It's
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I realized in my surfing too. Like, as I started to, learn all these techniques from your stuff and your work and working with you, and I learned the meditation stuff and going on a retreat with Matt. Spent time with Tom Carroll, and learned a lot from him. And then talking with Michael Gervais and Richard Bennett also was on the show, and learning about sports psychology. It all helped, but then I just got to this point where I couldn't focus anymore unless I dealt with the rest of the shit in my life. So it was when I dived deeper into my own psychotherapy and got a good psychotherapist. And then when I started to get the rest of my life sorted out, then when I did go surfing, there was no guilt. There was no, oh, fuck, what about this? And I could focus on my surfing, even when the waves weren't that good. And I could apply my surfing, I could focus on my surfing goals and my technique or whatever it was.
Michael, have you ever heard the expression, oh, like I do all this training, I'm doing all this stuff, but it's not transferring into the water, I'm not seeing the results?
Mm.
That be a case of their past or whatever is getting in their way and they need to deal with those unresolved issues. And then you'll probably find that it'll help you be more present in the moment.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's a huge part of it, and it could be anything. It might not. It makes me think that it could be, gosh, even a bad childhood experience in water that
Yeah.
they haven't talked about, or it could be the fact that they haven't sorted their relationship out with their father, or I mean, a common one, one of the most common ones. I had a client today, uh, got full permission to go play golf. Right? It's like, okay, great, I've got new clubs, go and play golf. And then the whole way through his round of golf, he's getting text messages from his wife. Oh, I'm really struggling with the kids. When are you coming home? Is it okay if I give them TV? And it's like, well, you're going to have that hard conversation with your wife. And like, it's one thing for her to say, hey, it's fine if you go play golf. But if she's sending you the little nudging texts, there's obviously something you haven't discussed. You've got to sort that part of your relationship out. Otherwise, how the hell are you going to focus on the ball when you're getting those text messages, because obviously your family and your relationship's more important than golf, but golf's important too. So what we're working through is sorting and getting some equanimity, some calmness, and some balance around the romantic relationship, so that when he does play golf, everything else in his life, and he can focus on the ball and the golf game when he does play golf, because the rest of his life is sorted out.
Um,
But there's one at the university. There's one person missing. I forgot, which is the body. Of the body, of course, you've got to be strong and flexible, and have your injuries well maintained. So that would be the last person I would have in that. I'm not sure who it would be though.
that's interesting.
Chris Mills comes to mind, but yeah.
Chris is awesome. And I feel that he's branched out and he knows a lot about everything else. So it's not one way with him. There's different ways, which I feel is awesome. A lot of people kind of, it's black and white, and with Chris, there's gray. You might need a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. So I do appreciate that about him. It's good.
Mm.
Matt,
And a nutritionist as well. That would be important.
oh, wow. Yes. Nutrition. So I recently started the whole keto thing, and the amount of energy that I got from being on the keto diet, clarity of mind, but also intermittent fasting, cutting out all the inflammatory goods and stuff like that. I'm not currently on keto. It's really hard to sustain. So I kind of, I'm running it, then I'm not running it, so I'm just going backwards and forwards. But when I'm on it, I feel fantastic. So yeah, diet, and what works for one person doesn't work for someone else. I'm a diabetic, so that tends to help my blood sugar levels, and because are better, my moods are better, emotionally a lot more stable. So it's been good for me.
Yeah, well, the coolest thing is, I mean, the bio-individuality aspect of what diet works best to one person. You can now just get your blood work done and figure that out pretty quickly now. So the science is there for those that are willing to put the time and effort in. Me personally, I'm on a animal-based diet, which Paul Saladino recommends. I like his way of thinking.
Animal-based diets.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Which one's
Well, if you look at what's the most bioavailable, nutrient-dense food, right?
Yeah.
And that's animal, specifically the organ meats of the animal,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Like one slice of liver is going to give you more vitamins and minerals than 3 giant salads, right? That's just a hard fact.
That's why killer whales always go for that. Wolves go for that first.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And also that you want to eliminate toxins. And it just so happens that we find the most toxins in the leaves, stems, and roots of plants.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of plants. It's called the antihistamine diet. Like I can't eat tomatoes because it causes inflammatory. And so it's coming out like swollen belly, stiff joints, sore muscles, which then affects your recovery. So yeah, like blueberries, probably the best thing that you can eat. Strawberries, most of the berries, because there's no, it's an anti-inflammatory and all those other kind of bits and bobs. I'm not too big on nutrition, but I understand what you're saying in my relatively.
Yeah, that's Paul Saladino. I like him. That sort of the diet he recommends is what has sat with me the best personally. But like everyone has their own take on it. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the fruit of the plant is the part of the plant that actually wants to be eaten. That's why the plant produced the fruit. Hey, come and eat me. So you throw my seeds away so I can grow over there, or you poop them out somewhere else.
Poop it out and fertilize it and let it grow somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, the rest of the plant does not want to be eaten.
Yeah, roots.
Just, yep. Yeah. We can survive on them, but yeah, since I don't eat vegetables anymore, so
Really?
Hmm.
Wow. That's I like veggies, but anyway, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that's a whole nother deep dive, really. But yeah, I urge people to go and check out Paul Saladino. He's got some interesting science and thoughts around
So
diet and nutrition.
the thing for me, like you say that straight away, and in my head it makes sense. Now I'm like, shit, I love bread, like potatoes, like roasted carrots, and I'm now almost defending myself. I'm gonna like, I don't think I eat liver. I'll probably throw up. I don't like the taste. So I'm starting to make a counter argument as to why I'm not going to do it, as opposed to just being open and going, oh, let's try it. Let's don't knock it until you tried it. And um, yeah, it's the psychology behind humans is amazing, and that almost leads me to where you are at the moment. Is that you're what I call a sky pilot, like a head doctor and a psychologist. So how do you deal with other people's problems and then detox? It, it's
Mm.
it's almost like I'm worried about having too much in my head, and I can't take on too many people's problems. I can take on a little bit, and then I need to disassociate, get over that, and take on more. I
Mm.
told you it's a tough thing, and you got to have really good willpower and mind power to do that. But tell us a bit more about your job. I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. I get a lot out of it. I like helping people with their problems. And the thing is, there's such a um, how do I say? So I'm at the moment I'm specializing in helping men, right? Because often when men start voicing the thing is when we have problems, they eventually come out, right? And sometimes when we voice them to close friends, they don't really want to hear it, and it ends up becoming gossip,
It's
right?
embarrassing, and you don't know
Yep.
how to deal with it. Number one, yeah,
Yep. And if we voice them to our partner, it can be too much. It can be emasculating, right? And it's sometimes we just don't need to put that stuff on our partner. Ideally, we would have a strong fatherly figure to go to, but for a lot of men, that just doesn't. It's just not there. We just don't have strong male fatherly figures, and and what's lost in society is we also don't have that priest or that confidant.
yeah,
So that's what the psychotherapist or the life coach or the counselor's job is to be there. You can tell that person anything, and they have a knowledge of psychology to help you, but they're also not going to tell anyone. You can literally tell them anything.
yeah,
And sometimes it's as simple as getting what's in your head out by speaking it. Sometimes it's that simple, but usually there's a serious problem going on and they need a bird's eye view, just like a surf coach. You know, you got someone, oh, I've watched all your online stuff and I think it's this and this and this. And now you go down to the beach and watch them surf and they just needed an outside opinion and a way and a strategy to implement the knowledge.
yeah,
It's like any other sort of coach in that ways, I guess. Sometimes it's just that outside opinion, but it's obviously it's a lot more, you know, talking about one's relationships or psychological problems is harder than talking about your surfing problems.
it's tough. I when I surf, I I now focus on fun. And because when I tried surf coach, I put high expectations, and then often I can't have that high expectations, and it comes out as frustration. And then if I'm frustrated, I'm just not a nice person to be around. But if I go out there having fun, I lower my expectations, and I just try to feel the wave and just be in the moment on the wave, and to be grateful that I've got time to be here in this moment, and again thankful. Um, and I suppose that's all part of like maybe meditation or just mindfulness. And when I do that, I have good surfs. And
Mm.
I always try to help other people in the water because maybe they're having a bad day, whatever, and just giving them a little bit might change their day. From going home and maybe moaning at a partner to going home and giving the partner a hug and going, hey, I had the best surf.
Yeah. I mean, it comes with maturity too, right? Like it's, yes, it's important that you take care of you, but taking care of others is just as important and just as rewarding as well.
Mate, so we've just spoke about surfing, but I felt like we've just spoken about how to be a better human and just more like life in general.
Well, it's I think one's surfing is a reflection of one's life. Like art imitates life and life imitates art, right? And surfing is an art form. So
Yeah.
you can tell a lot about someone by the way they try and catch a wave, right?
Oh, it's nuts. It's like I almost wish I could turn it off. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can't now.
That's a
You've gone
point
too
where I look
far.
at how people walk. I'm thinking about bones, joints, muscle. Then I'm thinking psychology. And then I'm thinking like the lines that they take. How much effort are they using? Are they just like linear with a forward, back, up, down? Or are they moving in figure eights and flowing? And now I'm all about flow inside of movement and then taking flow into the water and having flow inside of my head. Because if I get stuck in my conversation and I don't know what to say, my conversation's not flowing, which means the information's not coming out quick enough. So if I can have flow in my relationships and my mindfulness and my body and my surfing, I'm living a great life.
Definitely. Well said. I love that.
Yeah. Michael, I'm spent.
No, that was great. That's a perfect place to finish right there.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it's been wildfire. Just everything got lit up and was all over the room, and I love the conversations with you. So thank you for joining my podcast, which is called Save the Rail. Um, and all the best with your future endeavors. We will put a link up onto the site if you want to go onto jump and onto Surf Mastery and have a look at some of your past podcasts because there's a wealth of knowledge there for customers to consume. But then also, I don't know if you have a link to if people actually want to reach out to you. I know that you do, most of yours are Zoom calls, so it means that you can work with anyone anywhere around the world. Johnny, just say anything more about that?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, first of all, Clayton, for taking the time. And they were great questions, and it was good. Time flew by. I can't believe it's been went that
Oh,
fast. Yeah, thank you. Surfmastery.com. You can find out more about me. You can book the services, and yes, it's all most of my clients are Zoom based. So yeah, and I'm on the New Zealand dollar, which makes it even better for those who are in Australia and America listening as well. So but yeah, thank you, man. I'll just point people towards the website to find out more, and you can always, if you have a specific question, it's Mike at surfmastery.com, and of course, there's the podcast, which Clayton has been a regular guest. All those episodes are available on the website, and yeah, thank you so much, Clayton.
welcome. Absolute pleasure as always. And let's sign out, leave it there.
All right, awesome. Bye.